Okay, hello. In this video, what we're going to do is to look at how to join data from a table, so a non-spatial table, to a shapefile. And so to kind of set this up of what I mean, I have this watershed shapefile, and we look at the attribute table. We can see it's got an ID, and we have mean elevation and some other information about it, but there's no name. We don't have a name for the watersheds. And if we're making maps, we might want to actually put the names of the watersheds, not just a number that's meaningless to most people. The other thing that we don't have is watershed size, and we could calculate that. But if we look at this gauge information table, can open that and have it tabbed right next to it. We can see this has, not only does it have a name for each gauge ID, but it also has a drainage area. And this is a common thing to run into where you have non-spatial data, but it's linked to the spatial data by some common field, like a key field, like this gauge ID. So because those two are the same, we can ask arcGIS to, or not arcGIS, arcGIS Pro to link, basically pull in all the information to watersheds based on gauge ID. So it's going to say, where's this gauge ID? Well, it's right here. Pull in all this stuff, all the other information. It's going to go and do that through all the fields. And so the way we're going to do that is with a join. And so if we type join, we can see the different kinds of joins that we have. And we want to do join field. So we're going to join based on a field. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And our input table, I find this a little confusing because it's not a table, it's a shapefile, but think about it as the attribute table. So the attribute table of watersheds. And then the join field is going to be what field matches. And so if we go to watersheds, we see that we have this HRU ID as the name. So they're not called the same thing. This is gauge ID. This is HRU ID. So for the watersheds, we have HRU ID. Then for gauge information is where the stuff we're going to join in. And again, we can look over here and see gauge ID is the name of the matching field. And this transfer fields thing, you can select if you only want to transfer certain fields from this. I'm just going to leave it blank and it'll pull everything in. But if you just, like, let's say you just wanted the gauge name field to be slapped onto the edge of here, then you could choose that and it would just add that in. But I'm just going to leave it blank and it'll pull all of them in. And so let's click run. And so it's matching all of the records and then pulling in the data from the table to the watersheds. And so now if we look at our watersheds attribute table and scroll over, you can see that we now have the gauge names and we now have the drainage area. And so we could now color all of our gauges by this drainage area. And so we've taken non-spatial information from this table and made it spatial, or we could also turn on labels so we could actually label the names of these watersheds. And just briefly before I sign off here, I wanted to point out that so I brought in this CSV as a standalone table. And basically what you do here is just click add data like any other, like you were going to add a shapefile. And then you can click on your CSV and it'll pull it in as a table. Don't do XY point data. That's sometimes there's confusion there because the only other time that you've brought in data from a CSV is XY point data. This doesn't have XY data. We don't want to point, even if it does have XY data, we don't want to plot the XY data on the map. We just want the table. So you just do add data and it'll just bring it in as a standalone table. So that's joining based on fields.